Have you ever played a prequel that somehow made the original game feel even better or worse? There's something weirdly comforting about a prequel. You already know where the road ends. No shocking twists, no game-changing plot reveals that haven't already been spoiled by the timeline, so you don't need to sit on the edge of your seat the same way you would with a brand new story. A prequel doesn't have to keep you guessing, it just has to make you care about how everything got to the place you already know. Final Fantasy VII is one of those games that felt complete. It had everything you could have asked for. Cinematic 3D cutscenes that looked great for their time, a story filled with political conspiracy and themes of environmental protection, a cast of characters who are as endearing as they are cool to look at. It was the perfect game, and that sentiment was widely shared among the gaming community. Final Fantasy VII was one of those games where people could point to it and say, yeah, you can't do any more to improve that. But nearly a decade later, Square Enix gave us something we didn't even know we wanted. Something that didn't even seem like a possibility. A prequel. Crisis Core didn't just take us back to Midgar and give us a chance to revisit the world of Final Fantasy VII. It reframed it. It took side characters and one-off references from the 1997 original and turned them into a heartbreaking prologue that actually made the original feel heavier, sadder, more complete. Like playing this game allows you to appreciate and approach this world in a whole new manner. It's gotten to the point where I can't play one without playing the other. It's like adding a director's cut to a movie that helps make everything click. And that's the weird power of video game prequels. Sometimes they elevate what came before. They can add all new importance to things you didn't give much thought to in the original. Other times they undermine it, and try to give reason to many things that didn't need it. From Crisis Core to Red Dead Redemption 2, Yakuza 0 to Metal Gear Solid 3, prequels have quietly become one of gaming's favorite tools, and for good reason. So, what is a prequel? In the simplest terms, it's a story that takes place before the events of an existing game, but is released after that game came out. While sequels usually move a franchise forward with new characters, settings, or mechanics, prequels look backward. They fill in the blanks, flesh out origin stories, or explore pivotal events that shaped the world we already experienced. Sometimes they help lay the groundwork for future sequels. I haven't played the entire Kingdom Hearts series, but I guarantee there's a prequel in there somewhere that ends up spawning its own sequel. I just know it. But that's not always the case. Take Halo Reach, for example. It ends exactly where Combat Evolved begins, helping frame the events of this seemingly endless galactic war in a more dire and somber manner. But why make a prequel in the first place? From a business perspective, they're kind of a dream scenario. When a franchise has already built up a passionate audience, a prequel gives studios a way to capitalize on that investment without needing to invent an entirely new IP. It's safe, familiar, and already comes with baked-in interest. Players know the world, they know the characters, and that alone can carry a ton of hype. But it's not just a safe financial move. Prequels also offer creative opportunities. They let developers go deeper into their world building, giving weight to events that were only mentioned in passing or hinted at through environmental storytelling. Maybe a character's mysterious backstory finally gets told. Maybe a major war that shaped the main game is now fully playable. It can be incredibly rewarding for longtime fans. And on a gameplay level, prequels sometimes let developers experiment. Because the timeline is already defined, there's often less pressure to raise the stakes and more freedom to reimagine how a story is told. That's part of what made games like Metal Gear Solid 3 or Red Dead Redemption 2 so effective. They weren't afraid to do things differently, even if we already knew how the story had to end. That's what's so interesting about prequels from a narrative and world-building perspective. They all have the same premise of looking back in time to tell us a story we haven't seen yet. But how they choose to do that? That's where it gets interesting. Some prequels are specifically made to take place during a significant event mentioned in the original game. Let's take Halo Reach for example. Throughout Halos 1, 2, and 3, we hear of the horrors that the Covenant unleashed upon the planet of Reach, and just how important everyone's sacrifices were to the success of that mission. Well, in Halo Reach, we actually get to experience that. Rather than playing as Master Chief, who was the de facto Halo protagonist up to this point, you take control of Noble 6 in the midst of the mission to recover and deliver the AI assistant Cortana to UNSC hands. It's really interesting getting to experience a tragedy that had only ever been alluded to in previous games. It's a jarring change of pace to switch from relatively uninhabited lands in previous Halo games to the center of the UNSC's operations. A bustling, packed planet, experiencing the assault on Reach firsthand, with all the innocent people, that is jarring to say the least. And it did a great job of meeting the expectations set by all the talk of Reach's downfall in other Halo games. After playing Halo Reach for the first time, when you pick up Combat Evolved again, it's like there's this weight associated with it now. You know of the sacrifices made to get you where you begin in Combat Evolved. It helps elevate the game to another level, in my opinion. But Halo Reach isn't the only game to take this idea of a big past event and run with it. When the original Red Dead Redemption came out, you could find people online rightfully asking questions about the game's backstory. What exactly happened to the Vanderland gang to put John on the path to confronting all his former gang members? Are we ever gonna get to figure out more about characters like Dutch? Well, after milking GTA 5 for what seemed like forever, Rockstar answered a lot of the questions people had with Red Dead Redemption 2, a prequel to the original Red Dead Redemption. For those who don't know by now, in RDR2 you fill the shoes of Arthur Morgan, a character who I don't believe was ever even mentioned in the original game, as you get to experience the last 6 or so months of the Vanderland gang. Like Halo Reach, while we originally knew of how the gang split up due to the heavy crackdown of outlaw gang activity, we never got to see that firsthand. And in truth, the gang's breakup runs much deeper than stricter laws and harsher punishments. We get to see all the infighting, all the petty beefs and bad decisions made by each of the gang members to lead us to what we saw in Red Dead Redemption 1. Although everyone knew how the game would end, with the gang falling apart and John becoming essentially a puppet to the government, getting to see everything that went wrong is truly a spectacle in and of itself. These two games, while not having you play as a character who is essential in the originals, allow monumental in-universe events to be told through the eyes of a new protagonist, completely disconnected from prior games. And everybody loves Noble Six and Arthur Morgan, even though their experiences are but a snippet in the larger scheme of the series. There's a special kind of prequel that doesn't try to expand the universe or reframe the plot. It just wants you to get the main character, to understand who they were before they became the stylish, all-powerful icon you met in the original. That's what Devil May Cry 3: Dante's Awakening is all about. When the first Devil May Cry game came out, Dante was cool. Too cool, honestly. He was smug, unshakable, practically invincible. And while that made for a fun power fantasy, it didn't exactly leave much room for emotional range. So Devil May Cry 3 dials the clock back, all the way to when Dante started his demon hunting business, and gives us something different. A young, arrogant, kind of reckless Dante who hasn't figured himself out yet. And suddenly he's way more interesting. This is the iteration many people think of when they think of Dante. Outside of showing us the first time Dante enters his Devil Trigger form, which is just a subtle way of saying he's begun to accept his demon half, we get introduced to his twin brother Virgil. In the first game, he was barely more than a name, maybe a secret boss fight if you squinted. But in DMC 3, Virgil is Dante's twin brother, a genuine rival and a perfect foil. Where Dante clings to his humanity, Virgil rejects it. He's cold, composed, obsessed with power, everything Dante could become if he gave in. Their fights aren't just stylish spectacles, though they absolutely are. You're invested, hoping Dante is able to break through and help Virgil understand the importance of his humanity. And that dynamic reshapes every future encounter between them across the series. It also casts Dante's later appearances in a different light. His colder, more withdrawn demeanor in Devil May Cry 2, which confused many players, starts to make more sense when seen as the aftermath of the events in DMC 1 and 3, especially when you consider what it means to confront and possibly lose a sibling more than once. Ultimately, the plot of Devil May Cry 3 doesn't dramatically shift the overall narrative of the series. It introduces new characters like Lady and provides background on Dante's motivations, but its real strength lies in how it deepens the main character. It offers context, a reason to care not just about how stylish Dante is, but about who he is, and why. These types of prequels commonly explore a character whose actions and emotions aren't explained over the course of the original game. Whether it be a character who we only get to see in a flashback, like Zack from Final Fantasy VII, or someone like Virgil who we barely hear about in the first Devil May Cry. They allow us to form deeper connections with these characters, see how things started up before all the legends and myths popped up about a character. They give us a more grounded starting point, and can easily entice people who want to know how a certain character got their reputation. But not every prequel is about a single figure. Sometimes the story zooms out, expanding the world, the lore, to make the entire universe feel more lived in. At the end of the day, while every prequel builds the lore of a series further, there are some games that isolate themselves from any known character or idea, and look solely at the game's universe. Two games that I feel do an amazing job of this come from the same series, Metal Gear Solid 3 and 5. I'll spare heavy details for 3, considering it just re-released and some people might want to experience it themselves. But in essence, Metal Gear Solid 3 lays a lot of the heavy groundwork for what will become major ideological differences later on in the series. These differences spur all of the conflict we see in every other game. How the simple misinterpretation of one's will has a drastic domino effect on the rest of the world once money gets involved. Although the events of 3 are pretty well separated from the rest of the games, not really being mentioned in and of themselves, more so the effects that radiated after the events of 3, you'll see stuff in every other game and note how it was alluded to in Metal Gear Solid 3. Or you'll notice how some actions are a direct consequence of everything that went down in 3. But while the effects of Metal Gear Solid 3's events are what is felt most from that game, Metal Gear Solid 5 has direct consequences that we see in several other titles throughout the series. We get explanations behind what allowed for the Cobra unit to be so mystical and effective. We see how Big Boss fell into, well, malice after seeing him refuse to use child soldiers in the Phantom Pain, only to fully advocate for their use in the original Metal Gear. And for this game to completely contextualize established Metal Gear events, providing explanations and further exploration of Solid Snake's original assault on Zanzibar land, how Big Boss is somehow alive in Metal Gear Solid 4 despite having been shown dying on more than one occasion in the series, it feels like a telenovela at times, in the best way. These style of prequels have a little more that go into making sure pre-established conventions aren't completely ruined, as these ground-laying events, when explained improperly, can really ruin a lot of the allure present in a series. While I'm sure there are a ton of worthwhile prequels that I missed in this discussion, I just wanted to go over some of the reasons why prequels can be so effective in storytelling for a series. I'm sure each of you out there has engaged in something creative, only to retroactively realize you should have added this or that. And that's exactly what prequels allow game developers to do. Thankfully, for the most part, prequel games are done well. It takes a lot of attention to detail to ensure that everything lines up just right to keep players invested and feel like these past events and characters are worth diving into. But all of this is just my opinion. If there are any good prequel games out there that you want to talk about, feel free to mention them in the comments. Not too much though, I might end up playing some and don't necessarily want to be spoiled. Yakuza 0. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all in October with a brand new, exciting video.